Before starting the story, I kindly request everyone to subscribe and press the bell icon so you can easily receive every new video as it comes out. Thanks. I thought my marriage was solid. 7 years together. A house in the suburbs. A husband who kissed me goodbye every morning. Then one rainy afternoon, I walked up the stairs of my own home and heard my husband confess feelings for my younger sister. Not anger, not shouting. Just quiet, dangerous words. I don't know how much longer I can pretend. And when she whispered, I feel it too. My entire world split in half. I wasn't prepared to lose my husband, but I was never prepared to lose my sister. I was shocked when I knew my husband was interested in my younger sister, and she was interested too. If you had asked me 2 years ago whether I trusted my husband, I would have laughed at the question. Of course I trusted Ethan. Trust wasn't something I examined. It was something I lived inside of, like air, invisible but necessary. We had been married for 7 years. Not newlyweds anymore, but steady, predictable, safe. We lived in a pale blue 2-story house in Beaverton, Oregon. There was a maple tree in the front yard and a wooden porch swing Ethan insisted on installing during our second summer there. It creaked loudly every time we sat on it. You should tighten the bolts, I told him once. It adds character, he said with a grin. That was Ethan, relaxed, confident that nothing needed fixing unless it was completely broken. I was different. I believed in maintenance, in checking bolts before they snapped. I was a 3rd grade teacher. My days were built on structure, lesson plans, attendance sheets, carefully arranged desks. Ethan worked in marketing. He was creative, persuasive, good at reading people. We balanced each other. At least I believed we did. We didn't have children yet, but we talked about it often. On our 5th anniversary, we walked barefoot along Cannon Beach, the cold Pacific wind whipping at our jackets. Next time we're here, Ethan said, maybe we'll be chasing a toddler. I smiled at the idea. I believed we were building towards something permanent. Then my younger sister Lily moved in. Lily had always been the bold one. 5 years younger than me, she lived loudly. She changed her hair color on impulse. She painted murals on her bedroom walls. She laughed with her whole body. Growing up, I was the responsible one. The straight A student. The predictable daughter. Lily was the free spirit. After college, freelance artwork didn't provide stable income. When her roommate moved out suddenly, she called me one night in tears. I don't know what to do, she said. You'll come stay with us. I answered without hesitation. I didn't even ask Ethan first. I already knew he'd agree. Family is family, he said when I told him. I loved him for that. At first, it felt good having her there. The house felt lively again. Music played in the evenings while she experimented with cooking. The smell of garlic and basil filled the kitchen. Ethan would lean against the counter while she described her latest painting idea. You should sell that, he'd say. You're just being nice, she'd reply. I'm being honest. I used to smile when I saw them like that. It looked harmless. But slowly, almost invisibly, things began to shift. Ethan started coming home earlier on the days Lily worked from home. He lingered in the kitchen longer than usual. He laughed more at her jokes than at mine. When she entered a room, his posture subtly changed. His shoulders straightened. His voice softened. I hated myself for noticing. You're insecure, I told myself. She's your sister. He's your husband. One evening I walked into the living room and saw them sitting close together on the couch, looking at something on his phone. Their shoulders touched. Not accidentally. Not briefly. When they saw me, they shifted apart. Not dramatically, but enough. That tiny movement planted something heavy in my chest. Around the same time, Ethan began feeling distant with me. Not cruel, not cold, just distracted. He answered questions without really hearing them. He kissed me goodbye without lingering. At night, when I reached for him, sometimes he turned away, claiming exhaustion. Work's been intense, he said. I wanted to believe him. But doubt, once planted, grows quietly. The truth came on a rainy Thursday. A staff meeting at school was canceled unexpectedly. I drove home through steady gray rain, thinking I'd surprise Ethan with an early dinner together. When I stepped inside, I heard voices upstairs. I assumed Ethan had come home early. I walked quietly toward the stairs. Then I heard him. I don't know how much longer I can pretend. My body froze mid-step. Lily's voice answered, softer. We shouldn't even be talking like this. I know, Ethan said, but I feel it, and I think you do too. Silence stretched. Then she whispered, I do. My heart pounded so hard it felt visible. I love your sister, Ethan continued.
Ida.
But what I feel with you is different.
Different.
That word sliced through me. I didn't hear anything physical. No movement.
No kissing.
Just confession. Emotional betrayal laid bare in my own house. I backed down the stairs slowly, afraid they'd hear my breathing. I walked out the front door into the rain and sat in my car without starting it. Shock doesn't explode. It empties you. When I finally went back inside that evening, they were sitting in the living room. The air was heavy, as if they knew something had shifted. I heard you, I said quietly. Ethan stood immediately. Heard what? Don't, I whispered. Please don't insult me. Lily's face drained of color. Silence filled the room. It's not what you think, Ethan began. It's exactly what I think, I replied. Lily started crying. Nothing happened. But you wanted it to, I said. Neither of them denied that. I turned to Ethan. If she weren't my sister, would you choose her? He hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. I felt something inside me break, not loudly, but permanently. Ask Lily to pack her things that night. She tried to argue. You're making this bigger than it is. Am I? I asked. She didn't answer. She left with 2 suitcases and red-rimmed eyes. Ethan and I stayed in the house together, but it no longer felt like home. The porch swing creaked in the wind, sounding almost mocking. For days, we barely spoke. Finally, I asked the question that had been burning inside me. When did you start feeling this? I don't know, he said honestly. It just happened. Feelings may happen, but feeding them is a choice. He admitted he was drawn to Lily's spontaneity, her unpredictability, the way she reacted to things with passion. Life felt exciting around her, he said. And around me? I asked. He looked down. Comfortable. Comfortable. I had built our life carefully. I had maintained it, checked the bolts, and somehow I had become routine. We began therapy. It was brutal. I asked questions that humiliated me. Did you imagine kissing her? Did you think about leaving me? Did you compare us? Ethan answered everything, sometimes painfully. He insisted nothing physical had happened. He said he realized too late how far his emotions had drifted. He cut off contact with Lily completely. Meanwhile, Lily moved to another city. Months later, she asked to meet me at a park halfway between our towns. She looked thinner, quieter. I was selfish, she admitted. It felt exciting. I confused attention with love. Did you love him? I asked. She shook her head. No. I was infatuated, and I nearly destroyed my relationship with you over it. I wanted to stay angry, but she was still my sister. Time passed slowly. Ethan worked to rebuild trust, giving me access to everything, checking in emotionally, answering every doubt without defensiveness. Trust didn't return suddenly. It came in fragments. The first night, I slept without replaying that conversation in my head felt like a small victory. The first time I laughed genuinely with Ethan again felt strange, almost guilty. Healing wasn't linear. There were days I wanted to leave. Days I imagined a small apartment of my own, free from doubt. But there were also days I saw his effort, his remorse, his commitment. One night, sitting on that creaking porch swing, he said quietly, I was stupid. I chased a feeling instead of protecting a life. I looked at him for a long time. Love isn't proven when everything feels good. It's proven when something threatens it, and you choose to protect it. I was shocked when I learned my husband was interested in my younger sister. And yes, she was interested too. That shock changed me. It forced me to examine my marriage not as something guaranteed, but as something alive, something that requires intention. Our relationship isn't the same as it was before. It's more fragile, but it's also more honest. Sometimes I still hear that rainy Thursday in my memory. I feel it.
Idag.
Those words will never fully disappear, but neither will the choice we made afterward. To confront it, to rebuild, to tighten the bolts before the swing finally breaks. The weeks after Lily left were the quietest our house had ever been. Silence has weight. I never knew that before. The music was gone. The smell of her late-night cooking experiments disappeared. The hallway light no longer stayed on past midnight while she worked on sketches. It was just me and Ethan again, except it didn't feel like us. It felt like two people standing in the ruins of something neither of us fully understood how to fix. I moved through the house differently, slower, more aware. Every room held a memory I didn't trust anymore. The kitchen island where they had stood too close. The couch where their shoulders touched. The staircase where I froze while my world split in half. Ethan tried to act normal at first. He asked about my day. He made dinner twice that week, which he rarely did before. He folded laundry without being asked. It would have felt sweet under different circumstances. Now it felt like damage control. One night, about 2 weeks after Lily left, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Were you ever going to tell me?" I asked. We were sitting at the dining table. My food had gone cold. I hadn't taken a bite. He looked up slowly. "I don't know." "That's not an answer." He exhaled heavily. I was confused. I kept thinking it would pass. And if it hadn't? He didn't speak. That silence again. I pushed my plate away. "Do you know what hurts the most?" He looked at me, eyes red from lack of sleep. "Tell me." "It's not just that you had feelings. It's that you shared them. You let them grow. You made her feel safe enough to say, 'I do.'" He swallowed hard. "I never meant to hurt you," he said quietly. "I know," I replied, "but you did anyway." That night, I slept in the guest room, the same room Lily had stayed in. It felt ironic, cruel almost. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how something so emotional could happen without a single physical touch. That was the hardest part to explain to people later. Nothing happened. And yet everything happened. Emotional betrayal is invisible. There are no lipstick stains.
No hotel receipts. No undeniable proof.
Just words. Confessions. Energy. Connection redirected. A few days later, I asked Ethan something I wasn't sure I wanted answered. "Did you ever imagine leaving me?" He didn't hesitate this time.
No.
I studied his face carefully. "I imagined what it would be like if things were different," he admitted. "If we had met at a different time. If she wasn't your sister." That honesty hurt more than a lie would have. "So, you pictured a life with her?"
For a moment, he said.
"Yes." My chest tightened. And in that moment, I asked, "Where was I?" His voice cracked slightly. "That's what scared me. You weren't there." I turned away because I didn't want him to see the tears forming. Therapy started the following week. I almost canceled twice. Sitting across from a stranger and unpacking the most humiliating experience of my marriage sounded unbearable. But we went. The therapist, a calm woman in her 50s with kind eyes, didn't let Ethan hide behind. It just happened. "Feelings don't appear out of nowhere," she said gently. "They grow where attention is given." That sentence stayed with me. Attention. How long had he been giving his attention elsewhere? The sessions were exhausting.
We talked about when we stopped dating each other.
When conversations became logistical instead of emotional. When comfort replaced curiosity. It wasn't an excuse, but it was context. One evening after therapy, Ethan sat beside me on the porch swing. The wood creaked softly beneath us. "I think I liked who I was around her," he said. "What does that mean?" I felt admired. Interesting. New. And with me? He hesitated, then answered carefully. "With you, I felt known." "That sounds like a good thing," I said quietly. "It is, but I forgot to value it." That was the first time I saw something beyond guilt in him.
Clarity.
Meanwhile, Lily and I hadn't spoken beyond a few short texts about practical things, forwarding mail, picking up the rest of her belongings. Then one afternoon, she called unexpectedly. I almost didn't answer. Her voice trembled. "Can we talk?" There was something different about her tone, stripped of defensiveness. We met at a park halfway between our cities. She looked tired. Not dramatic tired. Real tired. "I keep replaying it," she said as we walked along the path. "That conversation. The way we justified it." "Justified?" I asked. We told ourselves it was harmless because nothing physical happened. But emotionally, it wasn't harmless at all. I appreciated that she didn't downplay it. "I never planned to like him," she continued. "It started with jokes. Then longer talks. Then private texts. I should have stopped it sooner." "Yes," I said softly. "You should have." She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I was jealous of you," she admitted. "That surprised me. Of me. You had stability. Marriage. A home. I felt like I was floating. When he paid attention to me, it felt like validation. Like I mattered. I didn't know how to respond to that. Part of me felt compassion. Part of me felt fury. "You matter," without stealing my husband's attention, I said firmly. She flinched. "I know." We stood there in uncomfortable honesty. "I don't know how to forgive you yet," I told her. "I don't expect you to," she replied. That was the first real step toward rebuilding something between us. Back at home, Ethan's efforts remained steady. He left his phone unlocked. He invited me into conversations instead of having side ones. He asked about my feelings without defensiveness. But trust doesn't return in grand gestures. It returns in consistency. Months passed. Some days were normal, even peaceful. Other days, a random memory would surface and ruin everything. One afternoon, I found myself standing at the bottom of the staircase again, staring up at the place where I had overheard them. My heart started racing. Ethan noticed. He walked over slowly. "You're thinking about that day?" "Yes." He didn't try to stop me from feeling it. He just stood there with me. "I'm sorry," he said again. Not dramatically. Not for forgiveness. Just acknowledgement. That mattered. About 8 months after everything happened, we took a weekend trip back to Cannon Beach. The same stretch of sand where we once talked about toddlers and forever. It felt symbolic, maybe cliché, but necessary. We walked along the shoreline quietly at first. Finally, I asked the question that had haunted me since the beginning. "Are you still attracted to her?" He didn't get defensive. "Attraction doesn't disappear like flipping a switch," he answered honestly. "But I don't feed it anymore. I don't fantasize about it. I don't allow it space." That was the most realistic answer he could have given. "And me?" I asked. He stopped walking and faced me fully. "I choose you," he said. "Not because it's comfortable. Not because it's safe. But because it's real. What I felt with her was possibility. What I have with you is substance." Substance. For the first time in months, I felt something steady in my chest. Not blind trust. Not naive belief. But grounded understanding. We weren't the same couple we were before. We were more aware. More cautious. More intentional. That night, sitting by the ocean, I realized something important. The betrayal didn't just expose Ethan's weakness. It exposed cracks in all of us. Lily's insecurity. Ethan's need for admiration. My assumption that stability equals immunity. None of us were villains in a dramatic sense. But we were careless. And carelessness nearly destroyed everything. Forgiveness didn't happen in one grand moment. It happened in small choices. Choosing to answer the phone when Lily called. Choosing to attend therapy when it felt humiliating. Choosing to sit on that porch swing even when it creaked with memory. I don't know what the future holds, but I know this. The shock changed me. I no longer believe love survives on autopilot. It survives on attention, on boundaries, on protecting what you've built, even when something shiny and new tries to distract you. And sometimes, the hardest lesson is realizing that betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the two people you trusted most. If you'd like, I can continue the next part with A dramatic turning point, pregnancy, separation trial, or unexpected confession. A temporary separation arc, or a twist where Lily reveals something deeper happened. Time didn't fix everything. It simply gave the pain different shapes. About 9 months after that rainy Thursday, I started noticing something unexpected. Not about Ethan, not about Lily, but about myself. I wasn't just hurt. I was different. I used to move through life with quiet certainty. I believed in plans, in structure, in the idea that if you were loyal and attentive, your life would reflect that effort back to you. Now, I questioned everything. If I texted Ethan and he didn't respond quickly, my stomach tightened. If he smiled at his phone, I noticed. If he mentioned a female coworker, I asked more questions than I used to. He never accused me of being paranoid. That was one thing I'll always respect him for. Instead, he answered calmly. She's on my project team. Yes, we had lunch with 3 other people. You can check my phone. Transparency became routine, but inside, I hated that I needed it. One evening, as we were washing dishes together, I blurted out something I hadn't planned to say. I don't recognize myself anymore. Ethan turned off the water. What do you mean? I used to be secure. Now I feel like I'm constantly scanning for danger. He dried his hands slowly. That's because I gave you a reason to. His accountability softened something in me. But I don't want to live like this, I continued. I don't want to be suspicious forever. He stepped closer but didn't touch me immediately. He had learned to move gently around my emotions. What would help, he asked. That question surprised me. I had expected defense or frustration. Instead, he wanted direction. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe time, maybe consistency, maybe feeling chosen without having to ask. That last sentence lingered between us. Feeling chosen. In therapy the following week, our counselor asked something that shifted everything. Do you both want this marriage because you're afraid to lose it, she asked, or because you genuinely want each other? The question sat heavy in the room. Fear had absolutely played a role. Fear of divorce. Fear of family judgment. Fear of regret. But when I looked at Ethan, I realized something deeper. Despite everything, I still wanted him. Not out of habit, not out of pride, but because somewhere beneath the damage, I still saw my partner. Ethan spoke first. I want her, he said quietly. Not because I'm afraid of being alone, but because I know what we built matters more than what I almost destroyed. I studied his face carefully. There was no defensiveness anymore.
No confusión.
Just clarity. That night, for the first time in months, I allowed myself to cry fully in front of him. Not controlled tears. Not dignified sadness. Raw grief. I felt replaced. I told him through sobs. Like I wasn't enough. He wrapped his arms around me carefully. You are never not enough, he whispered. I was the one who was lacking. I don't know if that was entirely true, but hearing it mattered. Weeks later, something unexpected happened. Lily called again. This time, her voice wasn't trembling. It was steady. I met someone, she said. I felt an odd mix of emotions, relief, jealousy, skepticism. His name is Marcus, she continued. He's a photographer. I stayed quiet, waiting. I told him about what happened, she said.
About you.
About Ethan. About my mistake. You did? I asked.
Yes.
I didn't want to build anything new on dishonesty. That sentence stayed with me long after we hung up. Maybe we were all learning. A month later, Lily asked if she could visit, not to stay, just to see me. I hesitated. Ethan told me the decision was mine. If you're not ready, don't do it, he said. But I was tired of avoiding everything. So I agreed. When she arrived, the house felt tense again, but different than before. Not charged with hidden feelings, charged with history. Ethan greeted her politely, but kept physical and emotional distance. No private conversations. No lingering eye contact. I noticed. She noticed too. We sat in the living room, the same room where everything had unraveled. I miss you, Lily said quietly. I miss who we were, I replied. She nodded. I'm not that reckless girl anymore, she said. Losing you scared me more than losing him ever could. Ethan stood up. I'll give you two space. As he walked away, I felt something unexpected.
Pride.
He wasn't hovering. He wasn't trying to fix anything. He wasn't trying to be charming. He was respecting boundaries. Lily and I talked for hours that day. About childhood. About our parents. About insecurity. She admitted something I hadn't known. I always felt like you had it figured out, she said. Marriage. Career. Stability. I felt behind. When Ethan noticed me, it felt like proof that I could have something solid too. But it wasn't yours to take, I said gently. I know. Forgiveness didn't arrive in a dramatic moment, but something loosened. By the time she left that evening, I hugged her. Not tightly, but sincerely. That night, Ethan and I sat on the porch swing again. You handled today well, I said. I meant what I said in therapy, he replied. I choose you. And choosing you means protecting this marriage from everything, even from myself. That sentence hit differently. Even from myself. At work the following week, one of my colleagues casually mentioned divorce during lunch. Sometimes people just grow apart, she said. The words echoed in my head all afternoon. Had we grown apart? Or had we simply stopped growing together? That distinction mattered. When I got home, I asked Ethan something new. What do you want in 5 years? He looked surprised. I mean it, I said. Not what you think sounds good. What do you actually want? He thought carefully. I want a family, he said. I want to feel connected to you, not just living beside you. I want us to keep choosing each other on purpose. Purpose. That word felt steady. And you, he asked. I want to feel secure again, I answered. Not because nothing bad can happen, but because we can survive it honestly. That was the difference now. Before, I believed nothing bad would happen. Now, I understood that things could happen, and survival depended on how we handled them. A year after the betrayal, something shifted inside me. Not magically, not dramatically, but quietly. I stopped checking his phone. Not because I didn't have permission, but because I didn't feel compelled to anymore. The anxiety didn't vanish entirely, but it softened. Trust wasn't fully restored, but it was rebuilding, brick by brick. One evening, as we were making dinner together, Ethan looked at me with something I hadn't seen in a long time. Desire. Not distracted, not divided, focused. And for the first time since everything happened, I didn't question it. I didn't compare myself to Lily. I didn't wonder if he was imagining someone else. I simply existed in the moment. Later that night, lying in bed, I realized something important. The shock had changed me, but it hadn't destroyed me. I was stronger now, not because I endured betrayal, but because I demanded accountability. From him, from my sister, from myself. I used to think love was safe because we were good people. Now I understood something deeper. Love is safe because it is protected, because boundaries are honored, because attention is guarded, because when temptation appears, it is confronted, not entertained. Ethan almost lost me. Lily almost lost me. And I almost lost myself trying to hold everything together quietly. But I didn't. And maybe that's the real turning point. Not that he had feelings. Not that she reciprocated. But that I refused to ignore it. I refused to shrink. I refused to pretend it was harmless. The shock was real. The betrayal was real. But so was the rebuilding. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something that didn't come from fear. I felt steady. It was almost a year since Lily had moved out, and life had settled into a careful rhythm. Ethan and I had begun rebuilding our marriage, slowly, intentionally. Therapy had become less of a forced obligation and more of a tool, a way to communicate without falling into old patterns. I started to feel that glimmer of safety again. Not the naive comfort I'd once had, but a hard-earned, deliberate trust. Then one evening, everything changed again. I was going through some mail at the kitchen table when Ethan came home looking unusually serious. He didn't smile, didn't joke like he normally did after a long day. My stomach tightened. That familiar unease, the one I thought I had managed, returned. "What's wrong?" I asked. He sat down across from me, hands clasped tightly on the table. "We need to talk," he said, voice low. I braced myself. I think we need to consider a temporary separation." The words landed like a punch. My mouth went dry. My hands froze over the envelopes. "Separation," I echoed.
Why?
"I thought we were recovering, moving forward." He took a deep breath. "We are. I'm committed to you. I'm not leaving. But after everything that happened, I think we need some space to make sure our foundation is strong."
To really reset ourselves.
Not a divorce. Not an end. Just, he paused. Time to breathe without constant tension. I felt a mixture of relief and disbelief. Relief, because he wasn't leaving me. Disbelief, because how could separation be part of rebuilding? "I don't understand," I said. "How does separating help?" "It's not about distance physically," he explained. "It's about emotional recalibration. We've been carrying so much anger, guilt, fear. Maybe stepping back in small ways can help us see each other more clearly." I swallowed hard. "Are you asking me to leave?"
No.
Not leave. We'd still live under the same roof, if we want. But boundaries. Scheduled space. Separate rooms for a few nights. No constant checking in. It's experimental. I wanted to argue, to say it was unnecessary. But something in me recognized the wisdom in his words. "Okay," I said finally. "We try it." The first week was the hardest. Even in the same house, there was a deliberate distance. Ethan retreated to the study with his laptop. I stayed in the bedroom with my books. Dinner was shared, but conversation was minimal. Small courtesies replaced intimacy. Polite smiles, gentle acknowledgments, no lingering touches. At first, I hated it. Every quiet moment felt like a reminder of fragility. I couldn't stop thinking about what could have gone wrong again. But gradually, a strange thing happened. I started noticing him differently. Not as the man who had almost betrayed me, or the one who carried guilt like a shadow, but as Ethan. Observing him in silence, I began remembering why I fell in love with him in the first place. The way he organized chaos in his mind, his small acts of thoughtfulness, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about something he loved. And he noticed me too. One evening, I was sitting at the kitchen counter, sketching in a notebook I hadn't touched in years, and he came over quietly. "You're really talented," he said. It wasn't the same casual compliment he had given Lily months ago. It was personal, directed, deliberate. I looked up. "Thanks." He smiled softly. "I missed this. Watching you create." Something in me softened. This was the attention I had wanted, the reassurance that our marriage wasn't just surviving out of habit. The separation experiment continued for several weeks. We each had our own space, our own routines. But we reconnected at key moments: breakfast, late-night talks in the living room, long walks in the neighborhood. And slowly, the tension began to dissolve. It was during one of those walks, under the first snow of winter, that Ethan reached for my hand without hesitation. "I missed this," he said simply. I didn't pull away. Instead, I let my fingers intertwine with his. That evening, back at home, we talked for hours about fear, desire, guilt, and hope. About how we had allowed a temporary infatuation with Lily to cloud our judgment. About what boundaries and respect truly meant. About the future. For the first time in months, I felt fully seen. Not as the woman who had been hurt. Not as the sister to Lily. Not as a figure in a drama of betrayal.
Just as me.
A month after that walk, something unexpected happened. I discovered I was pregnant. The test was positive before Ethan even came home from work. My hands shook as I held the little stick, staring at the two bright lines. My mind swirled with disbelief, excitement, and fear. When I told Ethan, he was silent at first. Then he pulled me into his arms, holding me close as if to shield me from every uncertainty. "I love you," he whispered. "We'll figure this out together." For the first time, the trauma of the past year felt like it could coexist with hope. And I realized something profound. Love isn't just surviving betrayal. Love is rebuilding on top of it, deliberately, day by day, choice by choice. The road ahead wasn't simple. There would be moments of doubt, nights of worry, memories that sting. But in that embrace, I knew we could survive it all, because we had chosen each other after knowing the worst, not before. And that choice, I understood finally, was what made us unbreakable. Pregnancy changed everything. The moment I saw those 2 lines on the test, a flood of emotions hit me all at once. Excitement, fear, hope, and the ghost of last year's betrayal. I sat on the edge of the bathtub, trembling, feeling as if my entire world had shifted on its axis. For months, we had been rebuilding, reclaiming trust brick by brick. And now, this little life inside me was both a symbol of that work and a challenge to it. When Ethan came home that evening, I held the test in my hand, waiting for his reaction. His eyes widened as he read it, and for a heartbeat, there was only silence. Then he pulled me into his arms, holding me like he wanted to shield me from every fear I had felt in the past year. "I love you," he whispered. "We'll figure this out together." I had never felt so relieved and so scared at the same time. It was a tangible reminder that life doesn't pause for fear or mistakes. It moves forward, demanding that we grow with it. The next few months were a mixture of hope and tension. Pregnancy brought its usual discomforts, but what made it more complicated were the memories that surfaced. The rainy Thursday, the late-night confessions, the whispered words between Ethan and Lily that had haunted me. At times, I found myself spiraling, imagining what could have happened if I hadn't intervened. Ethan noticed the change immediately. "Talk to me," he said one evening as we sat on the couch, my swollen feet tucked under me. "I can feel your mind spinning." "I'm scared," I admitted. "Not about the baby, not even really about us. I'm scared I'll never fully get over the fear of losing you again." He reached out and held my hand. "You won't lose me. I've made my choice every day since then. And now, this baby, it's part of us. Part of the future I want to protect with everything I have." His words calmed me more than anything else could. He didn't promise perfection. He promised presence, accountability, and commitment. And in that, I found a fragile but real kind of peace. Meanwhile, Lily had settled into her new city. She called occasionally, careful not to overstep, always aware of boundaries. One afternoon, she sent a message. "I met someone. His name is Marcus. I wanted you to know because I don't want to hide anything anymore." I felt a strange sense of relief. She was moving on. She wasn't lurking in our lives or feeding old feelings. That closure allowed me to breathe a little easier. As the months went by, the baby grew, and so did our marriage, in a quiet, deliberate way. Ethan became more protective, attentive, and present. He attended every appointment, read every pregnancy book, and even attempted cooking, sometimes failing, but always with effort. I found myself laughing again in ways I hadn't since before the betrayal. One evening, as the first snow fell outside, we sat together in the nursery, imagining what our child would be like. "I can't wait to see them," Ethan said softly. "I want to be the kind of father I should have been for you. Always here, always choosing the right thing, even when it's hard." "I can see that," I replied. "And I want to be the kind of mother who doesn't let fear dictate my love, who chooses love every day, like we're choosing each other." It was a small moment, simple and intimate, but it carried the weight of everything we had survived. By the time the baby arrived, Ethan and I had rebuilt a marriage that felt stronger not because betrayal had never touched it, but because we had faced the worst together and decided to stay. Holding our newborn in my arms, I felt a quiet triumph. I thought back to that rainy Thursday when I first heard Ethan's confession with Lily. The shock, the hollow despair, the anger, and the fear had all seemed unbearable at the time. Yet here I was, a year later, holding a child that represented a new beginning. A reminder that survival wasn't just possible, it could be beautiful. The past was still a part of us. The memories, the lessons, the pain, they were there, but they no longer controlled us. We had faced them, set boundaries, rebuilt trust, and chosen each other deliberately. Every day, Lily occasionally visited, always at a distance that felt safe. She brought stories of her new life, her excitement, her growth. Seeing her happy, independent, and respectful of our space reminded me that forgiveness and healing are possible, even after nearly losing someone to temptation. Ethan held my hand as I watched her leave one afternoon, and I realized how far we had come. "We survived," I whispered. "Yes," he said, squeezing my fingers gently. "And now we build something stronger, something we won't take for granted." In that moment, I understood the truth about love. It isn't perfect. It isn't free from mistakes. It isn't immune to temptation or fear. But it is worth fighting for, worth rebuilding, and worth protecting, even when the path is messy and uncertain. I was shocked when I learned my husband was interested in my younger sister, and yes, she was interested too. But that shock didn't define the rest of my story. Choice defined it. Accountability defined it. Love defined it. And for the first time in a long while, I believed that our family, small, fragile, but fiercely ours, could endure anything. We survived betrayal. We survived fear. We survived doubt. And now, together, we were ready to face whatever came next. Please subscribe for more interesting stories.
Goodbye and take care.